Welcome back. A decade ago, an aging Tennessee politician stood to fight one last political battle. John J. Hooker was both revered and also laughed at. Colleagues described him as a brilliant man. He made millions and he lost millions. But John J. Hooker never backed down from a fight. Our Bob Mueller shows us how in the 1960s, Hooker fought for civil rights, and in 2015, he fought for the right to die.
Called Minnie Pearl's Chicken. I was one of the 5 founders of Hospital Corporation of America. That's just after we won the Daytona 500. That was 02. That was when I ran for governor.
John J. Hooker Jr. was many things. A 2-time Democratic nominee for governor of Tennessee, an attorney, an entrepreneur, perennial candidate, and political gadfly.
My name is John J. Hooker.
John J. Hooker was also an advocate for civil rights.
I was here then on behalf of justice. I'm here now on behalf of mercy.
And at the age of 85, was diagnosed with a terminal illness.
I have, unfortunately for me, been advised that I only have a few months to live.
That same year, Hooker led the charge for what he called the ultimate civil right, death with dignity.
When the time comes and I'm laying in that bed, and I got tears in my eyes, and I'm hurting all over, and I know I'm going to die, and everybody's standing around feeling sorry for me, and I'm feeling sorry for myself. I wanted the doctor to be able to give me a pill so I can die with a smile on my face instead of tears in my eyes.
Hooker's death with dignity legislation failed to gain the support of enough lawmakers.
It was sort of a long shot to begin with because it was a new concept in Tennessee.
But it did not stop John J. Hooker, calling it the last true civil right.
And what I'm saying to you is the right to die with dignity seems to me to be a human right, a right that came from long before the Constitution, came as a part of being a human being.
No matter when it happens, he is the one that got the impetus going on this bill. So if it happens this time, if it happens next time, when it happens, it will be because of John J. Hooker.
And I have felt for a long time that the government ought to keep their nose out of that, and that the decision whether they live or die ought to be a decision between them and the doctor.
He kept fighting.
In my mind, politics is the difference between a person who needs a wheelchair, having one, and not having one.
He never gave up the fight.
And so I'm shaking my fist to the day I die.
In 2016, John J. Hooker died at the age of 85. He died fighting.
And 10 years ago, one of those helping John J. Hooker was a former judge. As Bob Mueller shows us, their team sued the district attorney, the governor, and the attorney general.
Hooker believed very much in the Tennessee Constitution. He believed it was a greater constitution as written by our forefathers than the U.S. was, and it gives a lot of rights to human beings.
Hooker believed the right to die with dignity belonged with other civil rights, the right to free speech, the right to religion.
Yes, it's an absolute right. And John Jay believed that the Constitution gave him that, as a citizen, gave him that right to make a decision. It was nobody else's business.
Joined by 3 doctors, Hardin presented to the court the evidence of why the right to die with dignity should be allowed in Tennessee.
We gave all the reasons for it, that why it was a good thing, and there are many, many reasons why, and there's a lot of data to back that up. But the judge thought that we didn't have what she called standing to bring the lawsuit, and it was dismissed. And unfortunately, John Jay died before we could appeal it, and so we had no client, and so the lawsuit just died with it. And because I think, I believe that we would have won it on appeal.
Hardin says the real issue was not dying, but rather being in control of your death.
I believe to this day that John Jay, if he had won that case and he had gotten a prescription, that he would not have used it. It's just 33% of the people that get this prescription never use it. It's just a comfort.
Right.
If things get going really bad, I know I've got this and I can check out at any time I want to, or I can make a decision not to.
Hardin says Hooker was ahead of his time with this fight.
And the latest polls that I have seen on this, the majority of the world's population agree with this, that it should be done. There are 11 states in the United States that have approved this.
Hooker was a fighter, and he looked to all sides for help in this fight.
And John Jay was very careful about it. He even went to see religious people, say, is this against God's rule? And they said no.
Hal Hardin does not believe John J. Hooker fought this fight in vain. Hardin believes the fight Hooker fought will lead to success eventually.
And someday people, I think it'll pass someday. I really do. Because if the people, once they understand that there's no downside to this, they'll go for it, I believe.
Well, still to come on the Right to Die debate, we speak with one of the original legal champions for the right to die with dignity. Welcome back. 66% of Americans say that assisted suicide should be legal. Today, it's legal in 10 states and Washington, D.C. I recently spoke with the law's original champion.
For me, it's a matter of honoring the way that person wants to live their final days.
Jeff Sugarman was one of the first in the country to bring to life what is sometimes called death with dignity legislation.
Are really at the point in their illness where there's no treatment options left for them.
The work to pass the new legislation started in Oregon in 1994. By 1997, the death with dignity legislation became law. And according to the state report from Oregon, the following year, 16 people chose to use the law and take a prescription to end their life. In 2023, that number rose to 367 people. Sugarman says Oregon's law has become a model for other states.
There's a really solid and strong process in place that really protects patients and yet still allows this choice for those people who are really at the end of life.
Sugarman says that Oregon's law has 4 key guardrails to prevent abuse. The patient must be diagnosed with a terminal illness and have 6 months to live with 2 doctors in agreement, be mentally competent to make their own decisions, be making the decision voluntarily, and the patient must self-administer the medicine. Supporters say these guardrails are critical. They differentiate death with dignity from suicide and from euthanasia, which is when a doctor deliberately kills a patient. Euthanasia is illegal in the U.S.
So a person with a disability just doesn't qualify to use the law unless they also have an underlying terminal illness. A person with a mental health issue does not qualify the law, to use the law. A person with Alzheimer's or dementia is not allowed to use the law because they're not deemed capable of making their own healthcare decisions.
Interestingly, a new Gallup poll that finds 66% of Americans not only support assisted suicide, a great many also support euthanasia. And that spans political parties. 79% of Democrats, 72% of independents, and 61% of Republicans say they support legalizing euthanasia.
The general public, as it is on a lot of issues, is far ahead of most legislatures in support for this.
These are the states that have legalized physician-assisted suicide. New York and Massachusetts may very well be next. But Sugarman says here in Tennessee, a death with dignity law doesn't seem to be on the horizon in the near future.
We look at states that have strong organizations and strong legislative champions, and those tend to be the states where we focus most of our efforts legislatively.
I'm Mark Kelly on behalf of our entire team here at News 2. Thank you for watching.